This is another Meta Talk.
My wife and I recently returned from a 6-week holiday in South Africa, and it was a fantastic time. While we were over there, we would walk through many markets. I got quite frustrated at the amount of markets we had to walk through, but on one of the days, I bought myself this little blue beaded giraffe. The reason I bought him was, number one, I thought I can definitely get that through customs, that's not going to be a problem. And number two was because it was cute. So for the last 3 weeks, he's been sitting on my bedside table, staring at me every day. I wake up, there he sits. I go to bed, there he sits. And his eyes just always glaring at mine. And every morning I wake up and I'm reminded of the gentleman who I bought this giraffe off. And let's call him Sam. Sam was a good-looking man, mid-20s, maybe early 30s, who day in, day out, would sell these things non-stop at the markets. And he would sit there day after day in his little plastic patio chair, pair of pliers, some beads, some wire, and just creatively work on these little things. And I thought, cool, great, good on you, Sam. You're doing something fantastic. I'm sure you're not earning a lot, but you're doing something fantastic. And I realized that I looked at Sam, who's a similar age to me, but definitely in a different area of life. And I realized that he was creative, he was a good-looking dude, yet he was completely uneducated and didn't have the capacity to go further in life. And so tonight I want to talk a little bit about education in developing nations. I'm a typical 28-year-old guy in Gen Y. I like a little bit of red wine. I got in trouble for bringing some home. Had to work out some situations that we didn't have to leave it in South Africa. I enjoy sports. We lost our futsal game last night, sadly, almost a 20-10 loss. I enjoy weekends away. I enjoy looking after people. I work in the youth work kind of arena, so I enjoy helping people, and I would consider myself a pretty typical Gen Y person. But if you compare me to Sam, both in the same generation, but both completely different. I'm sure he loved sports, I'm sure he loves red wine, I'm sure he loves the same things as I, but the two things that differed between he and I was that I had the opportunity for education, and sadly he didn't. I was raised in country New South Wales, and I had the opportunity to go through the private schooling system, primary, secondary, and then in a private college as well, studying design. And then got a job in graphic design and worked for many years in agencies and seeing different things. And then I would see Sam, who's a creative man. He's using his hands, yet he doesn't have the capacity to go any further than where he currently is, and will probably be at the same capacity for the rest of his life. In another one of our journeys, we met another guy whose real name was Sam, but I've already used the word Sam, so let's call him Tom. Tom was older than me. Tom was definitely in his 40s. He had a few kids, yet he works as a tour guide. And he works long days, but I also worked out that he too wasn't educated. And the long days that he works, he drives from Johannesburg to Kruger National Park and back, which is like a 16-hour drive per day. And I worked out he gets paid, I think it was 40 Australian dollars for the day. And for him, in the South African rand, it was an okay amount. But then I realized that he, in his 40s, raising 3 kids and a wife, is certainly living in poverty, to what I would consider poverty. He enjoyed it. He enjoyed his life. But the opportunity I had for him was that I could give him tips. And that's what they live off. They live off a tip-based system. But I had the capacity to bless him with a tip that was the same as his weekly wage. And he was so taken back that I would be so generous to give him money that he said, I'm going to keep this money for Christmas so that I can take my kids and get new school shoes for the next year. And I realized that I have the capacity, because I live in a nation that gives me the freedom for, if needed, a free education, where I could go through a system and at the end still get a great job that would take me far. And I have the capacity to now give from my heart and give my ability to give to someone that doesn't have that. And I was really challenged on our Africa trip regarding education. I mean, education is important in the society we live in Australia. I know that I work with kids that are in and out of school all the time and facing challenges. yet even so much more on the third world degree in developing nations. I just want to make sure I'm going in the right direction here. I believe that education is vital to a thriving society. A society without education will become the breeding ground for violence and intolerance. I think we in Australia, we know this. But an educated society will promote tolerance and peace, justice and understanding, innovation and advancement, and positive self-sustained growth. We know that enriched minds collectively create better solutions to whatever challenges their communities face. Children who stay in school earn higher wages and tend to have smaller families that are vaccinated, well-nourished and educated. They gain the skills to start community businesses, find their voice and choose peaceful paths to positive change. It is important to educate our children in the developing worlds, no matter where they live, for they will grow to become responsible citizens of their society. Each child represents a future, the future of the community, the future of the country, and the future of the world. And I love this quote by Desmond Tutu. It says, "We are one world, and these children are our children. Their destiny is our destiny. Each of us can make a difference." I did some quick research this afternoon on the cost of education in Africa, the cost to build a school, to fund a school, and I worked out for $10,000 US, you can build a school that will educate 1,000 students for 20 years. Wow. And I broke that down to 33 people giving $3.33 a day for 3 months, so 90 days. Broke it down, equals $10,000. So in 33 days, we could build a school classroom, which would then educate 1,000 students for 20 years. If those same 33 people decided to go, okay, we've done 3 months, now let's go for 12 months, we then obviously increase. So it goes from 1,000 students to 4,000 students over 20 years. That's massive. The cost that it took me to go through high school, I can put 4,000 students through for 20 years. It's massive. But what I love about the 21st century and being a part of a Gen Y generation is that we have the greatest opportunity now in our hands to make the biggest difference in the world that has ever been made. I've got some stats here on Gen Y that I'll read in a minute, but we seem to be a generation that cares more about other people than we do about our social status and climbing the corporate ladder. Here are a few stats. In Australia in 2013, Gen Ys gave more than 192 million hours of their time to charity, which is worth a whopping $3.1 billion. 30% of those who volunteer do so at least once a month. 1 in 5 Gen Ys plan to spend more time volunteering in 2014. 67% have undertaken volunteer and community work. 96% of Gen Ys consider it important to actively contribute in society. 53% volunteer because it makes them feel good. 42% believe giving back to the community is important. 94% have donated money to charity. 20% dig deep on a regular basis. 53% say having their personal and social values reflect in their job is more important than earning lots of money and getting a promotion. And 61% say volunteering has changed what they consider important in life. And I would agree. For the last 10 years, I've volunteered in the youth work sector across New South Wales and Queensland, and it's affected the way I see life and I want to work, which is why I changed from graphic design to youth work. I believe that we have the capacity to make change. And I believe that what Lindsay will speak about next time at one of these events, and the Build Your Own project, is an integral way that we can begin to see change in the developing nations, because we as Gen Yers, we have the most time, we have the most disposable income, and we have the heart to see change. And I truly believe that Build Your Own projects, we're giving someone a capacity to run with a project, will see change in their generation, in our generation, in their country and in our country. And as Desmond Tutu said, their children are our children. And seeing them succeed sees us succeed. My mother always taught me, if it's to be, it's up to me. So let me change that. If it's to be, it's up to us to see lives changed. Thank you.
This has been another Metamorphic production.